What if we're not taught the truth about American history? I'm Vanessa Wright, and this is a 10-minute chapter of my documentary, Sankofa Chicago, The Untold. It starts here in Chicago, but it speaks to something that's across the country. We're looking at what happens when history isn't told fully.
Hopefully we'll lead the nation in teaching accurate history. That means from page one, Black people should be included, women should be included, Latin people should be included, because we all have been a part of making history. When you look at the way history is written, Black people and women are just put in it as if a side note.
For social science history, what does it consist of in the Chicago Public Schools today?
Yeah, so it's a great question. History and all of the other courses within Chicago Public Schools, it is all centered around what the state is mandating us to teach. The state of Illinois mandates that there are certain topics that must be covered within K through 12. Some of it is within 9th through 12th, but there are topics such as Black history, Latinx history, topics around women in history that must be covered.
Accurate history is the key when we talk about making sure that students and society understand the truth about history. I think, Vanessa, you may have said something about we have to make sure that we return to the past in order to somewhat unlock it. I think we set up this commission to make sure that we teach accurate American history. It's not so much just worried about teaching Black history, because Black history is American history, and that's the difference. We don't need Black history to be taught as a pullout. We need it to be incorporated in the actual history of America. And the actual history of America has good, bad, and ugly. And it shouldn't make you feel good, because the history of this country has some ugly truths. And in order to have a knowledgeable society, one that understands different cultures, we have to know it all.
The policy states you are to implement a unit of study in K5 or K8, and then you need to provide another unit of study in high school. So with those questions from teachers, how do you do this? Do you have any suggestions? We used to get a lot of question around what qualifies as a unit of study. Is that really an actual unit? Like in February, do we just teach about Black people for a unit? Or does this mean something else? In our department, we developed some supports around defining what a unit meant. And for us, that meant, in particular for African American history, that was always implemented. So any unit that you had should be inclusive of African American people, their thoughts, their experiences, and so forth. And we did that for every other kind of group of people who was both named and even for the groups that were never named. So there are other groups such as Asian American, Pacific Islanders, who did not have a policy mandate to be implemented within schools instruction. And so several groups across Chicago fought most recently to really change that and shift that and make sure that there was a actual policy on the books that said you must teach Asian American, Pacific Islander history.
Illinois just became the first state in the nation to require public schools to teach Asian American history.
We are making Illinois the first state in the nation to require that Asian American history will be taught in public schools.
Did you ever learn about Asian Americans in your social studies class, or?
No. Kind of.
Sometimes?
Yeah. So sometimes my friends nearby, when they're close to my desk, sometimes they say, "Oh, that looks like you," or something like that.
I'm a mother of 3. My girls go to school here in the Loop. I was approached, might have been 3-4 years ago, by some parents that it's a school that's very actively involved by parents. And they thought maybe I'd be a good fit to help host it. Around the World is an event that happens once a year at our local school, and it features the wonderful, rich multicultures and diversities of all the students that attend there. Students usually are given about a month and a half to prepare for it. They take that time to do research and learn about their own backgrounds, their cultures, and in a way embrace it. They're able to share it with other students of what they learned, and other students can learn about these differences of students, that don't look like themselves and respect those differences. A couple of years ago, when pre-pandemic, it was an event that happens on a Friday night, a couple hours after school, and students usually grab a passport that's provided to them, and they kind of walk around and learn about each country. There might be a question in the passport they need to answer. If a student fills out the whole passport, it's submitted for drawing of a prize, something as an incentive for the students to get involved. And usually it's a no-brainer. They're just so excited, you don't need to even have to do any pushing for that.
Teaching, in my opinion, really is a vehicle that we could use and should be used to help transform human beings. And it's our job to make sure that we do everything we can to be the best teachers that we could possibly be so that we can have the brightest future. I'm embarrassed by the history that I was forced to teach as a social studies teacher, because when I look back, I know you read the 1619 Project. None of that was told and taught in my social studies classes.
The 1619 Project reframes U.S. history, focusing on slavery and its ongoing legacy. It appeared first in the New York Times Magazine in 2019, created by journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones.
The executive summary: a New York City carpetbagger who just migrated to Chicago almost on a whim. I walked in September of 1966. Wendell Phillips High School was a school in Bronzeville, built in 1904. It was originally built as a school for the residents of Bronzeville at that time, which was majority Caucasian, for the beginning of what would later turn out to be a black high school in Chicago where everybody just about attended. Nat King Cole, Donald Washington, some superintendents of schools, police officials, elected officials, Timeo Black, Lou Rawls. I mean, their Hall of Fame has hundreds of pictures in it.
So how did you teach Black history?
To the sources. Like I said, the reason you heard me before we rolled cameras, they say, I mentioned personalities because I had Howard Washington come into Jones High School. Howard Washington came into my class. Jane Byrne came in. I believed in first-person singular history. I wanted primary sources straight from the lips of the people in the news. They give us something called the State Board of Education's curriculum and state goals. And now it is so micromanaged that I don't really think a teacher is teaching. A teacher is almost like a wait person going down the aisle of a plane. What would you like to drink, or do you want the peanuts or crackers? Because the current curriculum requires a teacher to teach what the state capitol is mandating and link it to your lesson plans. We use the textbook to keep the door open or the window up high. The textbook was there for us to check some facts. But we knew the textbook, as Napoleon put it, history is a pack of agreed upon lies. History is who published it, who wrote it, who self-abridged themselves. No autobiography has ever told the whole person who ever print their autobiography. First thing they said is, what is it that I know I can't tell the world? Now let me put out the other book. This is the story, Jackie Robinson on Jackie Robinson. Self-censorship is automatic. I don't care who it is. I was never duck-tied or straight-jacketed with, Scott, what are you teaching today? What I'm teaching today links with, you might almost say, page 9, paragraph 3, section 2, subdivision 1. I think that's an absurd way to require, especially in the social sciences. Of course, in science and in medicine, there's a different curriculum, but you can't teach art through a state curriculum. Or cinematography through a state curriculum.